Hello and welcome back to Remnant 2. Last time we got to I think it's the Forsaken Lighthouse. It's a lighthouse, I can't remember the exact name. But we had also gotten the item to get the Ritualist class. I was calling it the Hexer. I think I had saw that in some of the promo stuff prior, and honestly the name fits better than Ritualist. But between episodes, I maxed it out. So, quick run over this class. I'm not going to run it, but Wrath increases all damage to enemies afflicted by a negative status effect by 20%, increases critical chance against them by 10. Terrify enemies within 5 meters of an entity that dies get a debuff for 20 seconds where they are more likely to drop ammo. Dark Blood reduces effects from negative status effects and Blight build up by 50%. And then Purge will, on relic use, get rid of any negative effects on you and put them on enemies within 7.5 meters. The Affliction archetype trait is really good. When we switch off this, we're actually going to buy the trait. For the skills, Eruption isn't bad. You get 2 charges. Creates a 1 meter explosion for 150 damage on all enemies within 15 meters. Explosion radius and damage increases 100% for each unique status effect on the target. Refreshes all current status effects on the target. This will refresh it to whatever your duration is. So if someone applies a bleed for 10 seconds and you can double it, maybe you have Timekeeper's Jewel. Okay. Now you can bump it up to like 30 seconds. When you hit with Eruption, it'll bump it to 30. So that's a pretty solid one. Miasma creates an AoE burst that applies bleeding, burning, overloaded, and corroded to all enemies within 15 meters, dealing a total 1500 base damage, lasting 30 seconds. That is solid. That is an amazing get because of these bonuses for each negative status effect. Some of your abilities and whatnot will have that, or some rings, and it synergizes super well. Or if you have, here's one: Abrasive Whetstone, attacking a bleeding enemy, crit chance increased by 15%, crit damage increased by 30%. Chains of Amplification increases all damage dealt to target suffering from a status effect. You're able to leverage it really well, and you can do a lot with it. The last one, Death Wish. I don't use it. Negates all healing to self, drain 300% health over 20 seconds, increases all damage by 35%, and grants 10% base damage lifesteal. I can see it working, but I don't think it's that good. Realistically, run Miasma, because we can just roll up on, let's say we'll do it like right here, okay? So we're in like melee with a guy, and there's all these dudes around. Pop that. You got some good range on it. And as we can see, the overload effect chains damage. And it'll chain lightning to non-overloaded guys too, but it's a solid get. That said, because we're built more for summons, we will switch off that. Now I have to rebuy this, which it's bugged, so I have to do like at most 3 at a time. Did that work? Yes, okay. Let's see, do we have anything else we can really use at the moment? Not really. Gotta switch to my correct summon. Get off Sage Stone, I don't need it now. That's just for leveling different perks, or leveling archetypes. We're also going to do a quick look at the ability we got last time. Creeping Mist. Shoots a canister that shatters on impact to reveal an expanding mist starting at 7.5 meters and growing to 15 over 5 seconds. Mist lasts 20 seconds. When affected, enemies receive 25% additional status effect damage and are 5% more likely to be struck with a critical hit from any source. And then the debuff persists for 10 seconds after target exits the mist. So if you hit a boss who stays still mostly, they will have the buff for, or debuff for 30 seconds.
Okay.
So we'll toss that on here. It's a longer charge, but for what you get, I think it's worth it. And then we'll just bounce it like there. You can see it's hitting a good distance. I'm not sure if that's affected by... Do we even have it? I don't know if it's affected by amplitude. It might be. I don't mess with these kind of traits. Simply because 9 times out of 10, I have other traits I need before that. So I can't really justify the upgrade. Yeah, we'll keep going Healing Shield. I don't know if this works on summons or not. Let's test this. Oh, it does. Okay, cool. Derelict Lighthouse, that's the title. As for the Ritualist class itself, is it worth it? From even just a if you want the trait point of view, yes, it is absolutely worthwhile. I mean, look at that 30-second acid debuff. 1800, so you're dealing 600 damage per 10 seconds. I find it works really well if you have Twisting Wounds, which I still don't have on this character, unfortunately. But it's a solid get. I think it can synergize with almost any build, simply because of what it does. I don't remember what that leads to. Well, we're gonna go down. I think this is the pig fight. Yeah, it's the pig fight. Which isn't like DLC content, it's actually just base game, but still fun. Hey, shiny hog lure. That now goes with our digested hog lure. Kinda wish there was like a I don't know, some like hidden combo. It's like, oh, if you have both of these, you get a synergy. I know it would kind of defeat what they've wanted to do with this game, because they were trying to shift away from that. That's why armor doesn't get set bonuses anymore. But I'd still have liked it. I think they should have brought set bonuses back, considering now we have, what, 4 parts of armor instead of 3? Oh yeah, he's not gonna get burned because we're in water. Yeah, kind of the curse of... Wow, oh yeah, well... Using my Captain Insano ability kind of does that to you. I was just shocked. It's like, damn, he went down fast. But yeah, I kind of set that up. I don't notice the Farseer being affected by any duration mods. The tooltip doesn't really say. I think it might. Let's see. Last 30 seconds. Let's unequip that. Last 30 seconds. I don't know. I like to believe it does something, but I can't say for certain. Even if it doesn't, who cares? It's still a solid ability. And realistically, if you think about it, if we put duration extenders, 30 seconds, 100%, you're pushing that to a minute, you put another 100% thanks to the trait, a minute and a half of, what, 13 damage a second? That would be just not fair, especially because 10 stacks, 130 damage a second. As much as people whine and complain about, like, the Hugs build, Hunter, Gunslinger combo being kind of brain dead and broken and overpowered, I don't really care about broken, overpowered builds, but I will say there are things that would just be obscenely broken like that. Because you could put that on any build. Stare at an enemy for a little bit and just start melting. You could, because it's just an ability you can put on a weapon, you could combo that onto a Hugs build and be really strong. Yeah, I love these minute acid timers. It's like, yep, you're just gonna be melting for a good while. The more I was thinking about this DLC, the more I realized this kind of became what I had feared, which was like the Swamps of Corsus DLC in Remnant 1, where it just expanded an existing area. But this was actually done correctly. Expanding an existing area, but also adding a new zone. Granted, I would have liked to have had the ability to just run the new content more than once. But I also get, you can't really do a one-shot and have everything just tied to that, because then you run through it once, maybe twice. Get everything and then you never touch it again. But at least this way, if you miss something, you can always come back. Which actually, this zone will require us to come back. I will get more into that when we get further and when we get to the lighthouse proper. We have the ultimate question, too, because there's something I want to see. One of these rooftops has an item sitting atop it, and if it's still there, I'm curious. Because, no, I have no idea how to get it. I've looked, and apparently no one has either noticed it, or I'm just really dumb, and the answer just is right in front of me, and I've never noticed. So it should be one of these buildings up ahead. Actually, no. Okay. Yeah, because it was right there. That was the spot. Can I... Yeah, close enough. But it was like an item that was shining right through there. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why it was there. And it was driving me insane because I ran around that building. I thought maybe you have to jump because you have like the rag there. And you have these platforms. And I just couldn't figure it out. We'll go fight the boss, because he should be... Well, they should be just over here. In here, actually. Well, aren't we lucky? We got these guys split up enough that we only had to face one at a time. Usually when I fight them, they're on top of each other, and it makes this fight not much more difficult, but still more difficult. The Sleeper Mutator. Weapon becomes empowered when stowed for 7 seconds, granting 20% critical chance for 3 seconds after it's drawn. While empowered, increases critical damage of this weapon by 15%. Oh, actually we do have Twisting Wounds. I will probably have to put that on something, because the only enemy that I know that is immune is like... I'm just trying to think, it's the constructs in the labyrinth. Because then at that point I'll just toss acid on the SMG, because realistically increasing damage by 15% is doing next to nothing on this gun. Meanwhile, corrosive range critical hit chance is at least more useful. Okay, so... Oh, this is also something to note. Shots deal applied burning, dealing 2070 fire damage over 30 seconds. Shots deal 1380 over 20 seconds. So, having this ring gives you more damage. I saw people were concerned asking, does this just drag out your damage, or does it increase your damage? Which is a very good question to ask, for obvious reasons. If your DPS gets nerfed, then why have the trait or why have the ring? Nobody wants to deal less damage when they attack. That's a completely reasonable ask. But if we can bump up our damage, that's a good investment. Now I can't check... Well, I mean, realistically, I can check. We'll do it right now just for the sake of doing this. Okay, 2070 over 30 seconds. Remove that. 1380 over 20 seconds. We will now go U, and then we will go U, so that trait is empty. 690 over 10 seconds. So with that ring and that trait maxed out, you triple the damage output. I don't know about you guys, but I think that's a good investment. Yeah, they really gotta fix that bug. It's kind of annoying. It's an easy solution, you just can't 1 to 10 anything. I think you can probably bring stuff up to 9 and have it do the manual like, yes, I want to do it, and then I have to back out for the last one. But it's still one of those things where it's like, why is this a bug in the first place? It's such a peculiar bug that doesn't really make sense. Oh, just up to here. Alright. But we're just gonna run through this last bit of the area, get it all mapped, get it all cleared. Because at this point there's no more bosses. This area is just those two guys, and as you can see, they're pushovers. It is nice having another duo boss though. Definitely gonna have to invest though in getting Twisted Wounds. A case could be made to run Twisting Wounds and the acid rounds on 2 different weapons. I just like having the sustain on my primary. Yeah, that was an instance where playing a Ritualist and being able to just AoE debuff everyone would be really good. But that's the big thing, is you need to build around the stuff. I think Ritualist, I've seen it a ton of people taking it. I think it's a solid bet. A lot of people run that and Archon together. I think realistically you can kind of just run Ritualist and whatever. I always like Healer just because, or well, Medic, because it's just, hey, do you want free healing? And it's more or less just kind of my fallback when playing with other people. Oh, also, keep in mind, I'm wearing Burden of the Divine, so it actually deals more damage if I'm not wearing that and getting the 10% damage reduction. So yeah, do with that what you will. This whole DLC essentially is, hey, welcome to the dot zone. Which is pretty cool because it was something I really thought was lacking in this game, was proper debuffers. I would have preferred more of like, hey, your enemies deal less damage, or your enemies, I don't know, attack each other, or you can do stuff like that, and a little more CC armor reduction kind of debuffs, as opposed to just like raw, you're just slapping people harder. But it's whatever, you know? I'm still happy. Okay, so now that we're at the lighthouse, there's two paths you can take. First path, you go up here, and there will be a locked door that you can use the key on. I will tell you here now on your first run, don't do this. The amulet you get, if my memory is correct, is not worth it. It's not a good one. It's pretty mid. What you want to do is instead go back out here, go back to where I shot that wheelbarrow, and then go into this cave. First things first, we got to examine this. You gotta flip it. Now it'll work down here. And here we get the Sparkfire Shotgun. Now, if you start as a ritualist, you get the Sparkfire Shotgun as your starting weapon. This fires incendiary shells that apply burning. 7-shot magazine. I will warn you, it has a very low max ammo of 35. There are two ways I would suggest running this weapon. First one, you toss like corrosive rounds on this. You toss like fetid wounds or twisting wounds, and you just stack damage. You're gonna just dot the hell out of them. The other is you take Bandit and you put it on here. The reason is just because 30% chance of restoring a round to the magazine. It gives you a little bit of sustain. If you go the raw dot route, take your secondary if you have a full auto weapon like this, and use... where is it? I think I have it. I should have it. Refunder. Max this out. This way you get, I think it's like a 30% chance to have ammo return. Shots from the weapon have a 30% chance to return spent ammo to reserves, and then a 50% chance of refunded ammo to be added to your other weapon. So, roughly, what, 3, if we're just ballparking it, 3 rounds per 10 fired, 12 rounds per magazine. Half of those, like 6, get added back to your reserves for the shotgun. Granted, it's not guaranteed, this isn't a perfect science, but it gives you sustain. That said, do you really need that sustain? That's up to you. You can always do a lot to kind of boost it. If you have, like, you're like me, you have 10 trait points just sitting in reserve, you could always get the Gunslinger trait, which at max level gives you 50% ammo reserves, so you're getting 17 extra rounds. There's rings that will boost ammo capacity, deep pocket, 25%. It's another 7 rounds if you're really needing ammunition. You have options. It's a tough choice to make, really, because it turns your secondary into something that just feeds your primary. Me, I have the problem with it because I just use my secondary as my primary. And a big reason for that is because of Fargazer. If I wanted to, I could slap Fargazer on this, then enter boss fight, pop it, switch, pop whatever ammo boost, corrosive rounds, let's say, on the Sparkfire, stack them all together, twisting wounds, fire, acid, and just dump shots into the enemy. It is an option.
You never should have come here.
I am unsure. I will probably do it, but I just don't know if I'll do it now or later. Also, this is critical. If you, for some reason, didn't get the shotgun, or you had to do like me and reset, this is the only spot where the lighthouse will spawn. You cannot use the other sewer dungeon. It will never spawn there. It is only here. So keep that in mind. You might have to kind of just do the one forced story dungeon over here to get to this area, push here, see what you can get, and if push comes to shove, just quit, reset the area, and come back. Now to find my way to the next area. All the while I have to deal with all the spawns. Which I think they fixed. There was an issue, I know, with some of the normal dungeons. They were spawning like triple enemies in some areas. I remember doing one dungeon co-op with 2 other people. I joined this guy and the game lagged out because so many enemies spawned and activated. And while I was lagged, I could run around, and I just counted, and there was at least a dozen guys in one room. And there was more on the way between my position and them, and there were guys after. It was terrible. Okay, so we gotta go pick that up. Gotta go this way. Too bad we can't teleport to this one. I just remembered we actually need to head back to here for... Actually, we can do it regardless. It's not that big a deal. Because we just have to get into the chamber with Nimue. Because we need to get in there, go back to the beginning, and there's a body we can shoot. Go, summons. Attack. Yeah, having the damage reduction for friendly fire would be kind of nice, just so I don't keep hitting my stupid summons. Because they really like to die, or at least get very close to death from one misplaced axe or a minute-long dot. Oh, another item. I don't know if we have it. I'm actually going to check here because the guys that are fighting are irrelevant at this moment. Okay, that's not it. Okay, it doesn't look like we have the ring. There is a ring we get in this DLC that reduces your dot damage by 10%, but whatever your last dot was, it applies a second stack. So you can imagine the power of 1800 corrosive damage times 2. Even if it's 1620, you're still dealing 3240 on one critical hit. Or if you do Twisting Wounds, you get the bonus against bleeding enemies, which is 10%. Then if you build around that with like the Crimson Whetstone, you can then put even more damage on a bleeding enemy, and you can easily outdo that 10% penalty and really leverage it. I kind of wish there were... I think I've kind of said it before, but like prestige classes. Because like the trainer handler... I have to check just so I'm correct on this. Handler. The handler is cool, but what I would like is like the Bloodhound. And it's built more around like, hey, your dog deals bonus damage against bleeding enemies. You get bonus damage against bleeding enemies. As kind of like a... It's a buff, but it's a focused one, and it's more in line with like a flavor kind of thing. But I like stuff like that just so that you can specialize your build just that little bit more. And because they're enemies like the Labyrinth enemies who just don't care about bleed, it's not like it becomes the de facto build, because you can get hard countered. It would be cool, but it would have to be tweaked to introduce an ability on some bosses that's like, hey, they can just purge debuffs and apply them to players or summons nearby, but it would have to be reined in. Because if you had, let's say, 3 ritualists, that's another fun thing. Each ritualist, you know that whole you can put one of every debuff on an enemy? Yeah, those can stack. So, if you want to go Will Smith Big Willie style on someone, you could, hear me out here, duplicate my build 3 times. You run in, everyone drops their dots. Okay, now it's triple dots on everything. Everybody uses the axe. That's another corrosive dot. That's another shock dot. Then you shoot. If you're using like Sparkfire, that's another fire dot. That's potentially another corrosive. That's another bleed dot. And they just add up. I have done this inadvertently. Just people were like, hey, I synergize with dots. I'm gonna do it. And we absolutely dunk nuts on guys. Like I said before, is it better than a Hugs build? Not really. Hunter Gunslinger, if you've never tried it, is obscenely broken because I think the crit chance bonuses stack like multiplicatively. They stack in a weird way that lets you just turn enemies into bloody puddles. Oh, if you wear the right outfit, like the witch outfit that we can get, you can walk by this guy and he'll just say, you can pass. We don't have it, so we get to choose violence. kind of want to roll through his first attack and be cool. But no, I had screwed up. I've been meaning to actually try a Hugs build, simply because I've heard people say that they're really good for going through like Apocalypse difficulty, and I kind of want to just speedrun my run through Apocalypse so that I can get all those unlocks. I also want to do it for the hardcore run, but I first want to test it, because if I can just kind of sprint through the game and have easy mode, I want to take it. Just because I don't care about playing on harder difficulties. I just want the rewards, which I know is kind of a, well, that's the point of playing the higher difficulty, but it's more of like, it's guns like Repulsor and just weapons from Remnant 1 that realistically aren't super strong. Like, you don't see people run Repulsor. You don't see people run the weapons outside of, like, I think Savior a little bit, but it's nerfed. And then I think World's Edge, which was the sword you get from killing Harsgard. But that's about it, and the only reason they take the sword is because the charge attack creates a wide, penetrating beam. So people can just, like, launch it through enemies. Short of that, people don't really use it, people don't really care. And that's... I'm just a completionist. I like having everything, and I'd like for my main character to have every weapon at max level at one point. And admittedly, I'd kind of like to get the stuff maxed, or at least available on this character for you guys. I think it'd be fun even just to mess around a little bit and be like, hey, here's what you can do. Also, that item we have to get by going up the elevator. Is this the path we gotta take? Where does this lead? I know where this goes. Yeah, that's what I thought. I was sitting here, I'm like, this doesn't lead back to Nimue. You know what, let's clear the other area, and we'll clear that dungeon next time. Simply because I want to get kind of the overworld here done. No sense in leaving it half explored. Right. As I finished that sentence, I was like, how do we get to the other area? Right, it's this way. Right, so there's... This will lead to the next story area. Ooh, the book. Okay, so we can actually take this back to the starting area that the NPC merchant guy, we can give him the book, and there's 3 things we can do. We can open it up and take a sigil out, and he'll be like, dude, why'd you open my stuff? Rude. And you're just kind of like, Lamau, I don't care. And you can use that later on to get another relic, which is... It's a relic. I have it. It's the paper heart. It's definitely To my knowledge, I have to preface this, to my knowledge, it is not really that good. Someone probably knows of some, like, deep arcane knowledge of builds who's like, actually, you can quadruple your damage if you combine this with this, and I don't know. My grognard unga bunga brain looks at it and goes, oh, this sucks, I'm just gonna use my healy stuff. Oh yeah, we open that later. I looked at the door, I was like, do I open that here? Have to flip the little switch. I do love the look of the city from here. Kinda wish the steamship you see out in the water you could, like, interact with. Ooh, the elevated ring. Increases dodge weight threshold by 5, reduces encumbrance by 5. It's okay. Realistically, we don't have the ring actually, but there's a ring you can get on Yesha that lets you turn some of your health, like 10% of your health, into gray health, and it lets you dodge in like a shadow step kind of way, and encumbrance is irrelevant. You can fat flop and you will still dodge at like light movement, and then you just build for gray health regen so that you don't take damage, and it essentially gets negated pretty quickly. So that's an option. What I would actually suggest, trying to build like all this weight reduction stuff isn't worth it when that option exists. People used to use I think it's the bright steel ring, but now it's the dull steel ring, and it got nerfed. Because it used to be, I was waiting for him to get in my way. But you dodge at like a lightweight regardless of encumbrance. And people were dicks about it. They're like, oh, if you're good, you don't need that ring. First off, if anybody tries to shame you for a build, they can blow it out their ass. Genuinely. It's a single player or co-op game. As long as you're not getting one-tapped, who cares? I just get tired of people trying to like shame players for their builds. Like, dude, not everybody is some turbo sweat stain who's just sitting here like theory crafting for 60 hours a week. If a dude wants to rock heaviest armor possible and burn a ring slot in exchange, let him. Now it got nerfed super hard, and it's like, oh, you get one like weight level lighter, so you can now get out of fat dodge, but you're still at every severe penalty. Which it's fair. I think it should have been 2 levels, simply because it's not good enough to justify. You are better off taking the ring that just is like, hey, light dodge, but gray health. That's sad. That Dran thought she was going to join the king in his castle, and she probably got eaten or killed in the process. I don't know what this does. I think it's just decorative, and the bell. Yeah, it just summons guys. I'm wondering if there's greater meaning behind it. I also kind of get it because it's almost like a weird trap. Because if you think about it, you got the big lumbering guy chasing you, you're like, oh god, oh god, I need to shoot, his head's up here, oh, I flicked, hit the bell, suddenly reinforcements. It makes sense. Is it a good design? It's okay. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, this is the worst thing ever. Whoever made this should be crucified. Like, nah, it's okay. I think what would have been cooler is if you had Shotgun Dran or Blunderbuss Dran up here, and just by fiat of how they're positioned, a stray shot could hit the bell. Alright, so now we have this, which is the next story dungeon. Right, yeah, so that entrance is through there. But yeah, I think that bell trap could have been designed better, but that's more... It's less of the trap itself, it's more the encounter could have been tweaked. So in general, it's not bad. But that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button. It helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.